Hi, this is our Cultural Diversity Research Project presented by Group 1. Gifted students are as diverse as each special population of students. Therefore, it is concerning to see that culturally diverse students continue to be underrepresented in gifted programs. This presentation outlines 6 different cultures and the customs and the values that may impact gifted identification and student achievement. It also outlines culturally relevant teaching and counseling practices that will help meet the needs of culturally diverse gifted learners. We begin with the Chinese culture. Unlike the majority of underrepresented cultures and minoritized students in gifted programs, Asian American students, including Japanese students, are somewhat overrepresented in gifted programs. It's important to note when discussing the identification of gifted students, much of the research is based on Asian Americans and does not consider the subgroups within Asian Americans, such as Chinese, Korean, Cambodian, Vietnamese, and more. When discussing Japanese youth who have been identified as gifted, some of these findings may be addressing the subgroups as well as Japanese youth. Japanese students often have a high level of education and are extremely motivated to learn and succeed. For this reason, they are considered a model minority, quote unquote, and this stereotype may be the reasons that they are overrepresented in gifted programs. In his blog, Stephen Haberlin writes, possible explanations for higher number of Asian Americans being screened and enrolled in gifted programs include high test scores and academic achievement stemming from parental emphasis on education, cultural influences that stress respecting teachers and other adults, and ideal behavior in classrooms, which can lead to bias during the selection process. There are many factors that may impact gifted identification for Japanese students, both positively and negatively. For example, Japanese students are particularly well behaved and polite. Therefore, these students tend to be recommended by teachers more often than other minority groups. In addition to politeness and good behavior, Japanese students are disciplined and goal-oriented and believe that reaching their academic goals will greatly impact their future and their family. Therefore, they are motivated to do well and are under pressure from their families to succeed. In addition, an emphasis on rote learning and memorization in the culture can lead to higher test scores than other minorities in gifted identification screeners. This, along with the fact that reading and writing in English are studied more in Asian homes than in other cultures, may lead to over-identification of gifted Asian American students. There are also factors that may cause Japanese youth to remain unidentified as gifted even when they may qualify for gifted services. In Japan, high academic achievement is thought to be reached through effort and dedication and not natural talents. Therefore, very few official gifted and talented programs exist. This could have an impact on gifted identification in Japanese students attending schools in the United States. Japan is a collectivist society where the focus is on the group and the teamwork and not the individual. This could mean that Japanese youth who are gifted and talented may be trying to fit in with the group and hiding their true abilities so that they do not stand out from the group. Teachers of Japanese youth should be aware of this belief and give Japanese students opportunities to demonstrate their abilities in a more private setting. In addition to the emphasis on rote learning and memorization also causes Japanese youth to sometimes lack creativity and imaginative skills. This can be a key identifier for gifted programs. Students can be identified as gifted in these areas. If Japanese students haven't practiced using creative thinking skills, they won't be able to express them in the classroom. There are both positive and negative effects on students' achievements because of Japanese customs, values, and beliefs. One negative effect is extreme fear of failure. Asian American and Japanese youth face pressure from their families and from themselves to succeed. This means that these students are often faced with self-doubt or the anxiety to live up to a standard set for themselves by parents, families, or even society. In addition, Japanese students might not always feel comfortable asking teachers or other students for help, as it could be viewed as a sign of failure. However, there are also customs and values that have positive effect on student achievement. For example, Japanese students are dedicated and devoted to academics. They are raised to have self-discipline, set goals for themselves, and be reflective of their own successes and failures. In addition, they have strong support, if not pressure, at home to succeed. Parents are involved in their children's education and encourage students to put forth effort to learn. Different forms of instruction are best for different groups of students. Japanese students strive for perfection and therefore live in fear or for making a mistake. So often Asian American students and Japanese students are stereotyped as high achievers because the model minority label that is given to them. However, students must avoid this bias in the classroom. Teachers must avoid this bias in the classroom and provide Japanese students with appropriate instruction. According to Fang, the whiz kid image is a misleading stereotype that masks individuality and conceals real problems. End quote. Teachers need to offer adequate support to every student in the classroom, including Japanese students. The do's and don'ts of effective instruction for Japanese youth include familiarizing yourself with students, understanding their areas of strength and weakness, learning about their culture practices, and showing students that you are interested in their culture. Students should also avoid stereotyping students, offer individualized support for students, plan instruction and activities that allow Japanese students to be part of a group, and help reluctant participants by providing them with models of effective and ineffective classroom talk. In addition, teachers should give clear rules and expectations as Japanese students do not like to defy authority. Japanese students will also be more successful when teachers model how to take the lead in a group setting and provide opportunities for students to practice this. If teachers show Japanese students that mistakes are both accepted and valued as part of learning, Japanese students will thrive in the classroom. One last important reminder is that students need to reach out to Japanese youth who may be hesitant to approach instructors for help. There are also many things that educators shouldn't do when planning instruction for Japanese students, and those include planning instruction and activities that cause Japanese students to feel singled out or on center stage. Teachers should also not assume that all Japanese students are experts in every subject and should not place pressure on these students to succeed, but rather to lead them towards success. This section is from Leah. I have worked with at least one Japanese student per year for the last decade. The students that I work with are English language learners and can read and write in English, but struggle to communicate orally in English. This leads to them saying very little in class, especially in front of the class. The students that I have worked with do very well in math class, but struggle in other subject areas, especially in the language arts. Therefore, in my classroom, we use an iPad for students to take pictures of every written direction so that, if needed, they can translate it to Japanese. I can also speak into an iPad and give my students oral directions and feedback, and they can do the same until we develop our own version of communication. The students that I have who I have worked with have demonstrated cultural values and customs such as being well-mannered and polite. They also demonstrate a strong work ethic and are goal-oriented. However, my students have also been timid and hesitant to ask questions, especially in front of the group or join in a group discussion. I have noticed that over time, my students from Japan prefer to work in pair or group of 3, but when working in a larger group, they tend to shy away from conversation in a larger group setting. For this reason, I teach and model accountable talk and provide talking stems for all of my students. The students who do exceptionally well when learning grammar or spelling due to the nature of the material and their ability to memorize the information. However, when it comes to creative or imaginative thinking activities, I notice my students tend to copy what I've written or what they hear others say instead of using their own thoughts. To integrate the Japanese culture into my classroom, I utilize interactive read-alouds to teach reading and writing skills that often have characters from diverse backgrounds. One text I use frequently is Tsunami by Kimoko. I don't know if I can say the last name correctly, but I think it's Kaijakawa. In this text, the Japanese hero saves his village from a tsunami. Another text I like to use is Wave by Susie Lee. This wordless picture book is great for making inferences and is a subtle way to multicultural texts to the classroom. Flying the Dragon and Baseball Saved Us are also two great texts to use for book club or narrative writing units and to create an inclusive classroom community. Working with students and their families. As Lewis, Rivera, and Roby state, quote, establishing trust and common understanding among stakeholders is the ongoing reciprocal process, end quote. Teachers of Japanese youth must communicate, consult, and collaborate with families to help students reach their full potential. Students should seek out feedback about students from the student families and in return send feedback home regarding the students' academic, social, and emotional behaviors at school. Parents should be invited to learn about the gifted program and the services that can be provided to their students. Teachers of Japanese students should also offer informal one-on-one time with families to discuss these matters in a private setting. Teachers should also understand that it is customary in Japanese culture to believe that talents and gifts are a result of hard work and effort put forth by the learner. So discuss the student's work habits with the parents and clearly explain the gifted characteristics that the student exhibits. Keep in mind that these parents have high expectations for their children. Honor the fact that for some families, being identified as gifted is meeting the standard. If language is a barrier between teachers and parents, a translator should be available for parents when they attend school functions or communicate with parents. Teachers should also research and understand the basics of Japanese customs and cultures so families feel that the teacher is interested in the background of the student. The Hispanic culture. Often new immigrants from Hispanic regions have a distrust of institutions or may not know how to navigate a new educational system, which leads to minimal advocacy. Another aspect of Hispanic culture is that reduces advocacy of potentially gifted Hispanic students is that asking questions to an authority figure, such as a teacher or an administrator, can be viewed as inappropriate. Education is also viewed as the responsibility of the family, so Hispanic families may not consider school resources to meet the needs of their children and will often rely on themselves. Hispanic students' ability may be masked or even mislabeled because of language barriers. Students with high ability may not be identified because of assessments used may not be modified for English language learners. Many Hispanic students come from an economically disadvantaged homes, which can create a gap of equitable educational opportunities, such as access to preschool. Familismo may impact student achievement, as Hispanic students may feel the need to help support their family rather than pursue academics. Latina women often feel the pressure of Marianismo in addition to familismo. I'm sorry if I am not a Spanish speaker. Marianismo is the emphasis that Hispanic women should assume the role of family caregiver. Respeto and educación are connected by the idea that the education of Hispanic students extends beyond school walls. Hispanic families feel that education of Hispanic children is largely the responsibility of the family and the community. Students from Hispanic cultures are taught to respect and learn from the elders within their community. Respeto and educación can have a positive impact on student achievement if schools can leverage the influence families and communities have on the education of Hispanic students. However, respeto and educación may negatively impact student achievement if students cannot make connections between what is learned in school and the values their family and their community. Because Hispanic students form strong relationships with family and community members, it is necessary for educators to build similar relationships with Hispanic students in order to provide effective instruction. Relationships and respect are foundational components needed to deliver information and guide learning in a manner in which Hispanic students will be responsive and receptive. Hispanic students also need to make connections between content and their culture in order to have sense of relevance with course material. Creating an instructional approach that integrates cultural connections will help Hispanic students understand how to apply content in an authentic manner. As with many other culturally diverse students, Hispanic students have the added pressure of learning a new language and social patterns on top of academics. This can be overwhelming to many students and needs to be considered when planning appropriate instruction for Hispanic students. Placing value on Hispanic culture and language will help students feel more comfortable in the classroom and will also help students make connections between content and their lives. As mentioned earlier, Hispanic families have strong family relationships. Involving families, involving families in the educational process will help to reinforce what is taught in the classroom and provide opportunity to bring family culture into the classroom. When working with families, also consider the importance of extended family, as Hispanic students often hold grandparents, cousins, and godparents in high regard. When establishing relationships with families, Hispanic families also prefer personal communication, such as phone calls and home visits over letters. Cooperative learning is another effective strategy as it allows Hispanic students to develop their intergroup relationships and refine communication skills. Lastly, metacognition strategies help Hispanic students monitor their own learning, which can increase reading levels and content knowledge. Chinese culture. Students that are identified as often referred to as supernormal. In the Chinese culture, they are often seen as superior to normal students. The tests that these students take measures their academic performance and also their future potential. Once identified, these students may be accepted into programs or the more elite higher level schools. These schools or special programs are designed for students to serve the national interest rather than serve these gifted students. They are also mostly offered to students who are more economically developed in the more economically developed areas. Because of this and strict identification process of the gifted students with disabilities and other disadvantages are often not identified or offer these special programs. Chinese culture and values have a big impact on student achievement. Students often have great pressure placed on them to do well in school in order to bring honor to their family. Chinese students are much more disciplined than typical American students. They are more quiet in class and are able to concentrate for longer periods of time. In addition to this, they also have a strong family support system. In China, acceleration is a common practice for gifted or supernormal students. Students in China finish school 4 to 5 years sooner than students in our educational system. This is the most common service approach, but it has its downfalls. Another effective instruction approach is enrichment. In enrichment programs, additional learning materials and activities are provided for supernormal students. However, very few students offer enrichment programs. China needs more enrichment programs, especially in underdeveloped areas. In the Chinese culture, there can be limited educational resources for students, especially to those of a lower socioeconomic status. Due to this, and because the Chinese population is so large, educational opportunities are very competitive. It is important to understand that there is great pressure for students to earn high grade on the public examinations. This pressure can lead to psychological issues and sometimes suicide. There is extremely high expectations set on children from their parents and also from society to climb the social ladder. Another pressure that Chinese students feel is often a form of perfectionism. This perfectionism is often seen as a positive light in contrast to the negative perfectionism that we can think of. Chinese students have a realistic outlook as they strive for excellence. These students feel supported by their parents and are highly motivated to achieve higher standards. The negative perfectionism is a rigid adherence to personal standard. With this outlook, students often lack perseverance to try again after a failure. It is important to teach students to recognize their perfectionism and teach them strategies to help them self-regulate. The Indian culture. A stereotype exists that Indian children are brilliant. However, they are like any other culture. Some are brilliant and some are not. Indian culture, like some other Asian cultures, stress conforming to the group norms. American culture tends to teach children independence. This clash of cultures can cause some stress for students. It might also make teachers believe their Indian students are not creative. Students could have mental health issues, but they tend to go untreated. Indians tend not to seek out help for mental health issues, as they seem they seem to be a family problem. They will not speak of family issues to others. Humility, or keeping self in the background, is a trait traditionally valued in many Asian cultures. Asian children tend to wait to participate unless otherwise requested by a teacher. Having attention drawn to oneself, for example, having one's name put on the board for misbehaving, can bring considerable distress. Many Asian children have been socialized to listen more than speak, to speak in a soft voice, and to be modest in dress and behavior. Parents of Indian children have high expectations for them. Parents believe education is the only means to success. India still has a very strict caste system in place. Education is the only way to move up the caste system, so parents put pressure in their kids to get an education. This belief has led to great stress for Indian children. Asian students have been dubbed the model minority, quote unquote, but this has led to Indian students shying away from asking for help when they need it. Indian students have also been pigeonholed into STEM careers. This can cause stress if they don't live up to the stereotype. In India, teachers are very respected and have a high place in their community. Students and parents from India might find our more informal ways confusing. They tend to work better in more organized, quiet, and structured classrooms. Students in India go into great detail about the need to develop character, connect community, and incorporate technology into students' lives. Gifted education can make a community connection by doing outreach and community service projects. This would tie in with the Indian culture. In diverse teaching strategies for diverse learners, they suggest many ways to embrace diversity. 1. Curricula including the contributions and perspectives of the different ethnoculture groups that compose the society. 2. Teachers communicate high expectations for the successes of all students and a belief that all students can succeed. 3. Community members and parents or guardians are encouraged to become involved in students' education and are given a significant voice in making important school decisions related to programs, such as resources and staffing. 4. Teachers explicitly teach students in the culture of the school and seek to maintain students' sense of ethnocultural pride and identity. Another suggestion was to ignore stereotypes. My Indian friend commented that she hates when people asked her why she doesn't wear her bindi. She's Christian and it's part of the Hindu religion, and if she has an arranged marriage. Culturally responsive practices. This is Caroline speaking. When I worked at a Muslim school in the Columbus area, I had a few Indian students. I had 3 children from one family, and while they were bright, they were typical kids. One was driven to succeed and did. One was worried and stressed about her grades, and the other one was carefree. Though their parents came from India, the kids were typically American in a lot of ways. I interviewed an Indian friend and asked her thoughts on being Indian and education in the U.S. She expressed her frustration with stereotypes. Many people ask her if her son is going to grow up and be a doctor or an engineer. She also talked about how everyone assumes all Indians are smart. Her father left India and got into a PhD program in the U.S. In her experience, many Indians end up in the U.S. because they came here for their education and stay. One of the most important things I learned from this project was to not assume my Indian students would always be the brightest. They might be motivated by their parents' wishes, but they might also struggle. It is my job to help when they struggle, even if they are embarrassed and they don't know. I need to be sensitive to the embarrassment that they might feel and be sensitive when talking to parents about struggles. Native American culture. Native American students are among the most overlooked group in gifted education. This could be due to the fact that the number of Native Americans in our overall population is significantly less than that of our other minorities, such as African, Asian, and Hispanic students. Regardless, these students are as worthy of consideration as any other group, so it is essential that their unique learning needs are acknowledged, understood, and met by their schools and culturally competent teachers. Tests used to identify giftedness often have a frame of reference that is aligned with mainstream middle-class American customs and values and show little regard to the customs, values, or languages of Native Americans. Timed assessments that require quick, organized thought are inconsistent with the reflective learning style. Often, Native American students are much quieter and more reserved than their non-Native classmates, so their giftedness might not be apparent right away. As they become more comfortable in the classroom environment, they are more willing to show their capabilities. It is important for teachers to recognize signs of giftedness so that these students receive appropriate educational services. Testing procedures used to identify giftedness may be incompatible with learning style preferences. In general, the learning styles inherent to many Native American students do not align with those that are usually supported and rewarded in the classroom. Native American students typically, 1, develop and appreciate acute visual discrimination skills through the use of imagery, 2, value cooperative learning, 3, perceive globally, like to see the big picture when learning a task, and 4, are reflective learners who respond more slowly. In contrast, white middle-class learners often 1, develop and appreciate refined verbal skills, 2, value competition among individuals, 3, perceive analytically. They are fact-oriented and learn best in sequential and step-by-step manner, and 4, are impulsive learners who respond more quickly. Native American children often do not like to stand out in a crowd. Because of this, identified students might choose to not enter the gifted program. Something that might help them feel more comfortable is matching them with an older gifted Native American student. The older students can serve as mentors and role models to the younger students and help them understand the many benefits of gifted programming. Humility and respectfulness are common values of many Native American students, and they might disapprove of the idea of being better than their peers. It is important to let them know that being gifted and being part of a gifted program do not imply that you are better than anyone else. Rather, it is a learning difference that should be accommodated. When students understand that being in a gifted program is important for helping them with their learning needs, they are more likely to enter these programs, embrace them, and thrive. Much of the literature about Native students is written from a deficit viewpoint and focuses on poverty, learning deficiency, violence, and substance abuse. Such stereotyping and overgeneralizations can contribute to, Pygmalion effect. Repeated exposure to these deficit messages may cause students to develop a fixed mindset and believe that there is no way for them to achieve success. To increase student motivation, students need to hold the same high expectations for Native American students as they do for their other students. They need to show students that they believe in them so that they can believe in themselves. It is important for teachers to understand that there are over 500 different Native American tribes that are recognized in the United States. Each of these tribes has its own unique culture, traditions, and language. Strategies and characteristics that are listed as common among Native Americans are very general in nature. In actuality, for every characteristic or strategy that is suggested for gifted children in one tribe, the opposite could be true for the gifted of another tribe. To effectively meet the needs of Native American students, it is essential that their teachers get to know them as individuals and learn about their tribal beliefs, values, and traditions. These cultural influences can greatly impact how students express and utilize their gifts and talents. A strong rapport between students and teachers increases students' sense of belonging, improves motivation for achievement, and encourages students to take on more academic challenges. A Native American student's background and frame of reference may influence their understanding or lack of understanding of instruction. It is essential that educators notice when this is occurring and develop strategies to help their students overcome any confusion. Some gifted Native American children struggle due to an internal conflict between their intellectual aspirations and their cultural expectations. Teachers can help ease this conflict by encouraging their students to see how education can directly benefit their tribe and community. By allowing them to pursue culturally relevant topics, gifted teachers can help these students build bridges between their school and their culture. Schools located on reservations typically integrate culturally relevant education into their practices, curriculum, and educational communities. This includes the 6 fundamental elements identified in the Northwest Regional Educational Laboratory Report. 1. Recognize and use Native American languages as a first or second language for bilingual instruction. 2. To contextually based pedagogy, which emphasizes current characteristics and values of the cultural community. 3. Incorporate strategies that combine contemporary culture with traditional culture and provide opportunities for students to observe, practice, and demonstrate skills. 4. Develop a curriculum that recognizes the traditional culture of visual arts, legends, and oral histories within a contemporary context. 5. Encourage strong Native community participation as well as collaboration with parents, tribal elders, and other community members. 6. Understand and use social and political mores of the community. Native American students who attend dominant culture schools also need positive school environments that encourage immersion into their native language, cultures, and traditions. The following are suggestions for culturally responsive practices. 1. Provide a multicultural curriculum. 2. Provide instruction that is sensitive to socio-linguistic differences and diverse learning styles. 3. Make learning more personally relevant by contextualizing instruction in the student's experience and background knowledge. 4. When possible, give students a choice on how and what to learn. 5. To increase student engagement and understanding, connect learning to real-world problems that are valued by the students. And 6. Generate products for real audiences. 7. Incorporate active learning in which students are encouraged to interact with peers, teachers, and their environment. African American culture. There are many factors that affect identification of African American students, such as gifted. One factor is that not a lot of white teachers refer Black students as gifted. Black students are more likely to refer Black students for gifted services. Standardized testing can also play a role due to the fact that testing can have biases and social norms that are not relevant to African American culture. Gifted programs lack in offering strong programs to Black students. Parents' role is very important. Many African American parents are less likely to request their child be tested to gifted services. Some factors that can affect African American students' achievement in instruction are lack of resources and self-esteem. Students are lacking of school support and resources. Many schools that African American students attend lack the support and resources to help students achieve their best abilities. Some schools do not even have gifted services to support African American gifted students. Another factor is how students view themselves amongst peers. African American students who are gifted can be viewed negatively by peers. The low self-esteem can really affect students performing at their best, and students who struggle with their identity and culture can also struggle with confidence to excel in academics. Lastly, the diversity in schools can affect not only the child's self-esteem, but the quality of the student's success. There are many ways to improve African American students in gifted programs. One important way is to ensure non-biased tests and multiple ways of identification. Another way is to educate teachers and parents on giftedness to improve the number of Black students referred to gifted testing. Students need more awareness about their own identity and culture awareness within school. Students also need to be exposed to different cultures throughout literature, instruction, and resources. Schools also need a stronger gifted program and resources that help support these students. Most importantly, redefine giftedness to ensure that this is being provided for every student that qualifies. Building bridges for culturally diverse families. Successful gifted programs not only serve gifted students, but also families and communities. In order to create a positive partnership between the gifted program, community, and culturally diverse families, schools must lay the foundation of trust through communication, collaboration, and consultation. Establishing an understanding and appreciation for giftedness among diverse cultures needs to be a priority to foster student success. Parents whose cultural and linguistic needs are honored and met are more likely to understand and support their gifted children in the program. Schools that succeed in engaging families from diverse backgrounds focus on building trust and collaborative relationships. They recognize and respect the family needs, class issues, and cultural values. A partnership in the academic and emotional well-being of the student is shared. Assessing the current climate and perceptions of school and family relationships will help identify barriers that exist. Families need to know they are welcome in the school and the classroom. Using multiple means of communication, actively listening to what parents say, and providing translators will help build trust. Knowing how different cultures show respect and then emulating them when talking with parents will establish positive relationships. To involve parents who have a language barrier, use translators during parent meetings and support groups. Print newsletters and program brochures in their native language and create easy-to-use websites. Keep printed materials simple and clear for easy understanding. A resource center in the school conveys the message that parents are valued partners. Make it a place that welcomes the whole family. Parents will feel more comfortable meeting in a relaxed environment. Some cultures prefer to meet in person and view notes and emails as impersonal. Parents feel more connected when they can volunteer. Invite parents to help plan and coordinate field trips, work with students, read aloud to the class, help at a fundraiser, teach about their culture, or teach a specific skill to the class. Teachers need to convey the importance, values, and expectations of parental involvement. Provide transportation and childcare for those who need it and offer events at different times of the day to reach more families. Record events for those families who could not attend the event. This helps them stay connected to their child's learning. Connect new families to other members of the school and local community to speak the same language. Families may feel more comfortable attending school events if they know other people. Community partnerships help students connect to real-world opportunities, avenues to explore their areas of interest or talent, and gives them access to resources and mentorships. Community members and school staff can help parents meet local college and business personnel to help complete college applications, obtain financial aid, and complete job applications for interviews. The next slides are all the resources that went into this presentation. Thank you for listening. We appreciate it.